I am going to joyfully introduce our keynote for this morning, Dr. Stephanie Shipp. She's a newfound friend and ally. I am so deeply grateful to her for agreeing to speak to us today. And she brings such deep authenticity to this topic. And as we met each other and started talking about this program and what I was really striving to create as a shared experience around our diversity, the biodiversity of life is also expressed in the biodiversity of we as human beings. And for us to become, as women, the stewards of manifesting that understanding, for us to express that in our way of being towards one another is so vital to the deep healing that our world is hungry for, and that I feel is being set up and primed so incredibly and unexpectedly by this shared global pandemic that we're all having to navigate. So the topic of her conversation today is in search of sisterhood, putting words into action. Stephanie, thank you so much. I adore you and celebrate you and welcome you to Women Leading Regeneration.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to make certain that you can see my screen that I'm sharing. So, I am so humbled and honored to be here with you today. I'm super excited. Sisterhood is something that is such a big part of my life. I want to sincerely thank Selene for this opportunity and welcome everyone from around the globe, wherever you might be joining us from today. Got just a few things I want to share with you today. I'm going to start with just laying the groundwork of what I want to talk to you about relative to sisterhood. I'm going to define it for all of us. Then I'm going to talk about what sisterly actions look like. And then I'm going to talk about what are the return on investments for making a commitment to sisterhood. So Webster gives us a definition of sisterhood. It specifically says an association, society, or community of women linked by a common interest, religion, or trade. I venture to say that everybody who's joined us here today, there's some common interest that unites us all. And Jolie said it so eloquently when she said, we are the light, we are energy, we're all connected to renewing the earth. Not only are we the stars and the moon, but we are the center. But I'd like for us to pause for a moment and put that definition into context for each of us. Think about your circle, think about your tribe, think about your girlfriends, and maybe even your biological sisters, should you have any. Do those relationships fit into this definition? I know for me they do, because I have a number of different sisterhoods. I have a collection of girlfriends that have been my friends since we were 12 years old. I also have another set of sisters and a sisterhood of my sorority. I have sisters from my collective group of friends from church. But I also say I have a sisterhood of women that I have a relationship with within my workplace. And as you were thinking about your sisterhood, I'd ask you, did you think about those relationships that you have in your workplace or in your work communities, your network of peers? Because I'd also say that's a sisterhood. And that's the sisterhood I really want to talk to you about today. So let's talk about where sisterhood matters. So unfortunately, the story for all women, it's not the same in the workplace. Gender is just one facet of our sisterhood, and there's so many women within that community of the workplace that their story is not the same. I'd specifically call out women of color, some of our sisters who are members of the LGBTQ community, sisters who are differently abled. Those intersectionality of sisterhood, their stories are not necessarily the same. where I call out to you on the screen, improvements have been made for women, but yet women are still woefully underrepresented. There's the broken rung, which is really when we talk about the inability for women to make it to that next level of leadership. Only 38% of women have made it to that next level of leadership. Within the C-suite, within companies, while it's increased to 21% since 2015, prior to that, it was 17% of women that occupied the C-suite. And when we unpack those numbers and look at the various facets, women of color are most notably left behind, and they represent 4% of that 21% in the C-suite. And there are also no women of color who are currently CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. I want to call a special call to action for those of us who are joining today who are part of that 38% who may be sitting in leadership roles, or the 17% of our sisters who are sitting in the C-suite. We all have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to lift and bring up others as you climb. So now I want to talk to you about when sisterhood matters. You know, suffice it to say, sisterhood matters always. There's not a time when it doesn't matter, whether we're at home or in the community or in the engaged out in the environment or in the workplace. It always matters. I've shared just a snippet of data that's out about women. Specifically, this data represents when observed biased behavior towards women has occurred. I want to call out two really key things about this data because I think it illuminates a bigger point. The first one is men are most often speaking out on behalf of our sisters more so than we are. And so with that being said, I want to make certain that I give a shout out to the brothers who are helping sisters. But it also shows that we as sisters within this collective sisterhood, we're not speaking out for each other when we could. There are a number of times when we could have helped one another, when we could have spoken up, that we said nothing. And I'll tell you, it's also alarming that as we think about other women receiving less support from their managers, you know, McKinsey and leanin.org offered a study that tells us that bosses are less likely to promote the work of women and their contributions to others. They're less likely to help navigate organizations and help the women to navigate organizations. Thus, as sisters who are often left out of these informal networks, which makes it even more incumbent upon us as sisters in the sisterhood to help each other in good times and bad times, to speak out and speak up on behalf of each other. We also have an obligation to speak for those who are not in the room as well. So with that in mind, sisterhood, we need you right now. I would tell us all join together in the sisterhood as we take this journey. And now I want to talk about what sisterly actions look like. Let me start by putting it very simply. Real queens fix each other's crowns. So let's talk about what it looks like to fix each other's crown. Sisters are different flowers from the same garden. While organizations seem devoted at this time to diversity and attention to creating inclusive environments, women are benefiting from that. But it's not enough to help us create and expand upon our shared sisterhood. We have an obligation, we have the opportunity to make it more. Meaningful connections like what we're experiencing today, whether it's a virtual connection or when times change and we can get back together and have face-to-face interactive connections. We have an opportunity for women of all races and ethnicities to advocate for one another for the collective advancement for all women. Current data also indicates that there's still some sisters that are left behind. Our sisters of color, Black, Hispanic, they still feel excluded. That's what data is telling us, data that we've received in both from McKinsey and Harvard Business Review reports that data. And so I want to have a special call out, and I hope you'll afford me this opportunity to connect with you differently, to say to my sisters, my white sisters, we need you. We need your partnership in this sisterhood so that we all can grow and thrive together. And so here's what I tell you. Let me give you 4 easy phrases that I have on the screen that'll help you. And I'll just call it raise. In seeing your sisters who are different flowers from the same garden, recognize them for who they are. Just see them. Afford them the opportunity to be their authentic self, whatever that looks like. And then accept them as their authentic self and include them in the discussion, bring them into the room, bring them into your sisterhood. I've often heard a phrase that said, I don't see color. But I would submit to each of you that your sisters of color, we want you to see us. Today, I want you to see my lovely orange shirt, but I also want you to see me. Just as you would stroll through the garden and you'd see the red flower, the yellow flower, the purple flower, we want you to notice us because we want to bring our authentic self and have you accept that and include us. Let me give you an example, and maybe I'll bring it a little closer to home. And unfortunately, I can't see everybody raise their hand, but if you're like I am, you're sporting your COVID-19 hair. May not be the color that you prefer, may not be the style that you like, may not even be the cut. But I would tell you that if we all were afforded the opportunity to safely go back into our normal environment, out into the communities tomorrow, sporting our COVID hair, most of us would be accepted just like that without any pause or hesitation from anybody else. But there's a segment of our population who actually have to have their hair legislated for it to just be in its natural state. I want to pause right there and help you think about that. There's a segment of our population, specifically African Americans, who have to have legislation put into place that says it's okay for them to wear their natural hair. Wow. See us. See those sisters of color and race. Next, I tell you, your sisterly actions, hear them. Hear your sisters. 1 in 5 women report of us have been the only in a number of different situations. And there's stories and research of women being the only woman in the room, and it can be exhausting and taxing. I'm sure some of you can relate to what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I'm sure you have some sisters in your sisterhood who can relate. The data also shows that it's more pronounced for our sisters of color and for our sisters who are lesbian. They're torn between their authenticity and assimilating. Let me give you an example in terms of hearing your sisters. I once shared a challenge that I was experiencing with one of my coworkers. She happened to be a senior leader. It was about a project that I was working on, and I was running into some resilience with folks in the room or folks who are on the project team. And she gave me some really sound advice and some things that I could go do. And there were a number of those things that I could easily go implement. But there were some things that I couldn't do. And I specifically called out to her, I can't approach that problem that way because I won't be successful. It will not be accepted for me in my who I am to present and engage in that manner. She skipped right past my comment. She kept on explaining to me why that was the right approach. That's an example of my sister did not hear me. She did not pause long enough to at least unpack what I was saying to her. So she failed to hear me because she didn't realize I couldn't leverage the same approach. So I would tell you, in terms of sisterly actions, when you're listening to your sisters, hear them, hear us, ask questions to gain more insight. And just remember, everyone's journey is not the same on this path. Whew. I just say, can we help a sister out? Can we help each other out? And let me tell you how we can do that. Sponsorship. When your sisters are not in the room, help a sister out. Be a sponsor for them. We're competent, we're capable, and this is for all of our sisters, no matter what that flower looks like. Everyone needs some sponsorship. Mentorship. Help your sisters grow. We need to help each other grow so that they can get in the room. So more of our sisters can get in the room. So we reduce the number that are feeling like they are the only in the room. Partnership. We've got to work together. We don't have to have one queen bee, although a lot of folks like Beyonce, we don't have to, other than her, in the workplace and in our environments, we can work in partnership when we're in the room together. Allyship. We need to unite forces, whether it's regenerating the earth, whether it's making change in our work environments, whether it's making change in the political arena, whether it's making change in the schools and everywhere. We need to unite our forces to make changes for those to have access to the room and those who don't have access to the room. Friendship. That's the easy one in terms of helping a sister out. Just be authentically kind. I would say Selene was just authentically kind to me, and we just immediately bonded, and thus I'm here today. So now I want to give you one last thing to consider. When I talk to you about queens fixing other queens' crowns, let's make certain that we do it in such a way that we are not, that we're being kind and considerate and thoughtful. We can fix another queen's crown without letting the world know it was crooked. So that means having that conversation offline in the appropriate way, but we still should be helping each other out. What does that look like in terms of sisterhood return on investment? So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. We can add 1 million women to the management ranks in corporate America in the next 5 years if women are hired or promoted at the same rate as men. The only way that we're going to do that, we can't do that with just the support of men. We need their support, but we also need to support each other. And this is relevant because if we break it down just to the numbers that we earn, just to earning power, women earn 75 cents for every dollar a man earns. But I also want to drill down on that just a little bit to let you know that Black women earn 61 cents to that $1 that a man earns. If that is to change for women overall, for women of color, we have got to bond together in a sisterhood that is of action and taking action. There are a couple of quotes that I have on the screen from Marian Wright Edelman, and I'd like to read them to you. Understand and be confident that each of us can make a difference by caring and acting in small as well as big ways. This is our call to action. We don't have to do anything exorbitant. The small ways are just as important in our sisterhood because our sisterhood is powerful when we unite together. If we think we have ours and don't owe time or money or effort to help those left behind, then we are part of the problem rather than the solution to the fraying social fabric that threatens all America. We can't be the sisters who, I've got mine, you've got to get yours. We have to be in this thing together. When we stand together, Selene had us stand and plant our feet on Mother Earth so that we could be grounded. When we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, albeit virtual shoulder to shoulder, nothing stands a chance against us. We are powerful, we are mighty, we are awesome. Now, I guess the question is, what now? I tell you that sisterhood is a journey. We've got to keep working it. Day by day, morning by morning. There's so much work to do. Every chance we get, each of us, we have an opportunity to make space for our sisters. Bring them with you. Bring them with us as we climb. Lift as we climb. Part of that lifting as we climb is part of educating each other. You know, there's a great agenda for the next 2 days. Each one reach one, each one educate one about the regeneration that's required of our earth. There's also regeneration required of each other. These are unprecedented times. And I would venture to say that you have someone in your sisterhood who would benefit from you reaching out to her today. Help her reach out. Bring her closer to your sisterhood. This pandemic has brought on a number of different issues for people. So reach out and touch some of your sisters. We're adding chapters to our sisterhood story. This is a new chapter in my sisterhood story. I share with you a number of the sisterhoods that I have in my life, and now I count you all amongst that new sisterhood. And I hope that we can build a relationship, and I can inspire you and you can inspire me. The focus on diversity in women is the right one to have, and we all have to be comfortable adding to that narrative. Today, I step forward to share this message with you, to add a voice, a new voice, to maybe the narrative that you've heard around diversity. And hopefully I've given you some new points or a new point of view or a perspective in a way to see diversity in our sisterhood and see the value of that. But I would tell you, we need to make certain that every chance we get, in a kind and meaningful way, that we draw attention to the call outs and the help that's needed by our sisters of color. Specifically our African American sisters and our Hispanic sisters in the US. They're getting lost in the numbers. And we need your help to make certain that that doesn't continue to happen. So I gave you a tool earlier. I'll share it with you again. Let's make certain we use Raise. They're here in the US or around the globe. Let's recognize each other. Let's allow each one to bring their authentic self. Let's be accepting of our sisters and our sisterhood, and let's include them. Let's be very inclusive. I know I've shared a lot of information with you today, but if you want to know more about sisterhood in the workplace, I'm going to share with you two books that I think would be, regardless of where you sit in the world or whether you're in corporate America, in a private company, if you are engaging with other sisters and working in a sisterhood, these two books I think would be very meaningful to you. One is Corporate Sisterhood, The Ultimate Power Prescription for Every Working Woman by Dr. Jackie Colbert. And the second is The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. Now, don't exclude yourself from reading this book because maybe you're not a woman of color. Because there's still a message. I think this is a great companion reading to Susan Steinberg's Lean In. Again, two books that would be great for your toolkit. So as I close out, I just want to welcome everybody to the Sisterhood. Thank you for attending the Women Leading Regeneration Summit, especially a word of gratitude and thanks for Selene, for leading such a great effort and bringing everyone together and building out this new community, or expanding and building out this community of sisterhood. I'd leave with you to remember we're all sisters in this new sisterhood. It's up to us to see each other. It's up to us to hear each other. And it's up to us to look out for each other. This has never been more important than it is in these unprecedented times. Again, thank you and be blessed.